Thanks, Shane. Welcome, everyone. This is the last meeting prior to the AGM. So item 1, to confirm the minutes of the meeting Sligo Drumcliffe held on the 15th of March. Proposed Councillor Gilroy, I'll second them. Any matters arising?
Because there was one question I had in there, Emer, and it was the road in Cliffany, and it was done in the 8 weeks as you promised, but unfortunately another big pothole had developed right beside it, and it wasn't part of the contract, and they didn't do it because they were an outside contractor. So I might ask that I have said it to Declan, and I'm sure he's working on it, but just if you could maybe push that on, because it doesn't look well when we do a job and leave something undone beside it, even though I know it was an external contractor and outside our control. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3, to receive an update on the N16 Logithopper scheme. Ms. Kilcannon. Item 3, to receive an update on the N16 Logithopper scheme.
Okay, so the Logithopper scheme. So the N16 Logithopper, which is Drumcliffe to Lugnagal road development, was brought through the early design and statutory planning stage. This was approved in 2019 by Sligo County Council's National Roads Project Office team. In addition, the design process involved the preparation of an environmental impact assessment report and a Natura impact statement. This followed a route selection process for the full N16 in County Sligo, which was completed in 2017. When constructed, the scheme will remove one of the poorest geometric sections of Sligo's national road network. It involves a greenfield realignment of just over 2.5 kilometres of National Primary Road from the Drum Road north to just past the Glencar Road. It will reduce journey times and improve safety along the route, along with improving accessibility for vulnerable road users through the provision of dedicated cycle tracks. So in relation to land and house acquisition, the CPO for the development was confirmed by Sligo County Council on the 27th of August 2019 and included a total acquisition of 23.83 hectares of land. The notice to treat was served in February 2020 and possession of all lands required took place throughout the year. Over 40% of the land acquisition claims were also agreed throughout the course of 2020, and these negotiations are ongoing throughout this year. In relation to archaeological resolution, AMS were appointed by Sligo County Council in the summer of 2020 to complete a full archaeological resolution of the site. The investigation works involved approximately 9 hectares of geophysical survey and over 11 kilometres of archaeological test trenching, which assisted archaeologists in locating new archaeological sites that were hidden beneath the ground over several millennia. The investigation and excavation works were conducted between June and December 2020 and involved up to 30 archaeologists working on 15 different sites. In relation to advanced clearance and temporary fencing, P&D Leiden contractors were appointed in November 2020 to complete advanced site clearance, which included the removal of hedgerows and tree lines within the land take of the road development. In addition, over 6 kilometres of temporary fence lines were erected. The permanent fence will be erected as part of the main construction contract. These works, in conjunction with the archaeological resolution, now leave the project in a shovel-ready state. So regarding the detailed design and main construction contract, JB Barry Transportation were appointed as technical advisors to Sligo County Council on the 3rd of February 2020. The Commission requires the consultant to provide engineering consultancy services for the client, Sligo County Council, during Phase 5, which is enabling and procurement, Phase 6, which is construction administration, and Phase 7, which is construction of the TII project management guidelines. Detailed design work and preparation of construction contract documents took place throughout 2020. These documents are currently being subjected to an independent peer review in advance of proceeding to tender publication. And the current status is that, subject to TII approval and funding, we will be in a position to proceed to tender the main construction contract in July or August of this year, with a view to awarding the construction contract in the later part of this year or very early in 2022.
I'd like to thank the Director for her report. Any questions or comments? Councillor Gilroy.
Yes, thanks for the report, and it's great to see the advanced work being done on it, to see the clearance and all that. Even already, you know, you feel that that has kind of reduced the amount of water lying on the road, and during frosty conditions in the winter there, it was a little bit better than previous years. There's a roundabout going at the Drum Road from the drawing you sent me before. Maybe I'm kind of bouncing that on you, but I kind of wasn't aware of that. I'm always concerned about a roundabout in an open road situation, and if you were to drive down to Bundoran, you'd see where somebody must have had the car on cruise control and it went straight across it, and the two-wheel tracks go in one side and out the other. So, you know, there's always dangers to be kept in mind, and I'm sure there will be. The next road, which the number of I don't have, it's what I'd call the Collinsford Road. There's a major problem. It's a very minor road. You might look at some sort of controls on it. I'm nearly afraid to mention the word closing off a road in case I get myself into more trouble, but the residents on that road, it's a very minor road, and Google Maps and some of the phone apps are bringing buses and everything else heading to Yates's grave down it. I don't know if there's anything we can do to stop that happening. It appears to be it's going to be open onto the new section, and I know you have to kind of look at any opportunity to remove junctions onto main roads, but I think you might find agreement with some of the residents there, maybe not with all. Some have come to me and said that it's a major problem because the road just isn't fit to take buses or camper vans and things like that. There's very little passing space. I know the area office has put some passing zones in it, which are suitable for cars, but they're not suitable for bigger vehicles. And just if you could maybe take a more detailed look. I know it's off the national road, but it's linked to the project, and the junction is going to be redesigned. And I'd appreciate maybe you might come back to me with any suggestions you have that might alleviate the problems for the people on that, which is a minor road. It's just not fit for heavy traffic, and we're all using Google Maps now and sat navs, and it gets them into trouble. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor. I just want to thank the Director for her report and look forward to the progression of the project. Item number 5, Councillor Casserly.
Thank you. Is there a report, please?
I second that.
Caherlock, Sligo County Council will include this road for consideration in drafting the 2022 to 2024 multi-annual restoration improvement programme, and will also include in our pothole repair programme currently.
Can I second that if it wasn't seconded, or was it seconded?
I did, but that's okay, right? Yeah.
Look, I've had representations on that road as well. Sorry, Councillor Castells.
Sorry, I didn't hear that bit. So I just heard Emer's just finishing the report. Is that okay?
Yeah, so if you want to go ahead, Councillor Castells.
Oh, thank you. No, I just like to welcome that report. It is a road that is in need of repair for the last, I don't know how many, probably 20 years now at this stage. It's a very busy road. I have met with the engineer and residents there, and they have actually been very patient because there's been a lot of correspondence over and back. And I'd like to also acknowledge Damien Henry's I suppose participation in this as well, and his input. It is a very busy road, particularly if there's an accident on the N15 and traffic has to be diverted. There are a lot of houses on the road. The road is narrow. The drainage isn't great in a lot of places, and there are a lot of young families on the road as well. So I certainly welcome the report. Definitely it needs pothole repair, but I know that if it's on the report, it will be done. But I would ask for it to be put on the closer to 2022 than 2024, please, because it really is an urgent need of repair, and particularly halfway along the drainage is very bad, and it's affecting houses on that road. And residents really do appreciate that works will be carried out in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilroy.
Yeah, no, sorry for interrupting there. Yes, this road, it's long overdue. The surface is completely deteriorated on it, and Damien has acknowledged that. The dog warden service is there as well, so it is in effect a council service that's on that road. It goes out at the upper end onto what would be called the Castletown to Glencar Road. I don't have the number of it in front of me, but there's a culvert at the top of that road, an open culvert, which you might ask them to have a look at as well. I've had a few representations about it in recent weeks, especially that it's dangerous in that somebody may go off. It needs an extra box culvert put in to widen what's there at the moment, just with increased traffic and increased weight of vehicles that are going across it. So if you could maybe look at that, it would also be an advantage to the people on the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6, Councillor Casserly.
Thank you. Is there a report, please?
Item number 6, Mermaids Cove, Mullaghmore.
Sligo County Council will examine the area to assess the extent of works that may be required. There is no funding in the current year's roadworks programme to carry out any extensive repairs, but we'll certainly examine the area and look at what can be done and what potential can be done with limited resources.
Thank you. Well, I suppose I can kind of welcome it that at least if there's a report carried out. Now, it's in a very scenic location, and there will be lots of, it's right beside the caravan park there in Mullaghmore, and there are lots of visitors and lots of walkers accessing that area. The issue is that there are barriers there for a long time. A lot of them have fallen down now. The wall that has been there, I'd say, for generations, that has just fallen into disrepair. So there's actually nothing protecting, I suppose, walkers, or even you can actually drive the car up there, but not too many people drive up there. But nothing protecting people from the fall, and there is a fall just on the other side of the rocks. So I suppose just for not only for visually improving the area, but also for safety. And looking at it, I'm not an engineer, but I don't think in the overall scheme of different types of works or even resurfacing or anything, I don't think that it would cost a huge amount. And I'd say it's mostly the reinstatement of the wall that just has fallen into disrepair. But I know that Declan and Damien will have a look at it and they'll come back to us. But hopefully it'll be done, because it's a lovely scenic area and the barriers are just falling down, and it's unsightly as well. Thank you.
Yeah, just to support the motion. Item number 7, Councillor Casserly.
I'll second that.
Second with Councillor
Is there a report, please?
Yes, Coherlock. Recent inspection shows little evidence of coastal erosion at Streeda Beach as such, that is wave action erosion. However, there is obvious evidence of some of the dunes being worn down by pedestrian traffic. It will not be feasible to carry out a retrospective survey on Streeda Beach to see what damage has been done in the last 20 years. There needs to be a baseline survey done first now, as there's no record of such a survey ever having been done at Streeda. So a formal study such as covering areas such as wave actions, climate change, etc., would cost a considerable sum of money. Given that there's no infrastructure, example such as houses at risk, there would be no economic cost benefit involved. Therefore, it would be very difficult to get funding from outside agencies. So Sligo County Council will, however, seek an opinion from a relevant professional in the area, and we can also look at erecting sand dune fencing to protect the dunes in due course.
Thanks, Ms. Concannon. Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, thank you. And I have spoken to Mr. Baines about this as well. And it is very expensive. And I know he did explain that because there's no schools or houses directly in danger of being affected, it's not as urgent. But you know, there are farms there are fields there, and there's also a holiday farm just down from it, and that they would use that facility there as well. So there are a couple of businesses that would be affected. I do agree with the sand dunes have been erased or have been, I suppose, depleted over the years, and a lot of it is due to just people accessing the dunes as we all did when we were children, and our own children do. I welcome the commitment, hopefully, of sand dune defences. I know that in Strandhill, when that was carried out, that it did make a difference. And I think for this one particular sand dune close to the entrance to the beach, that is very tempting for children to go up and down. And I do notice that a lot of them now are using like bodyboards and surfboards, which it's great fun, but it's actually just speeding up the erosion of that particular sand dune. So there were fences erected there a good few years ago. Maybe Mr. Feather, you might remember when they were erected, but some of them are still at the top of that particular sand dune because it's difficult to get up to the very top of it, but further down the fence has been broken. So I think if there was a fence refitted there again, I'm not sure how much they cost, but I think that would make a big difference, and it would stop the erosion, and it would, hate to say, keep people out, but at least it would stop people from, I suppose, damaging it or more damage happening on it. So I welcome any kind of a fence or any kind of intervention that would keep people or keep the sand dune from further erosion. Again, the area, I suppose, all that area there are a lot. Last summer there were a lot of tents. There was a lot of that, free camping. A lot of people weren't using the portaloos that were there because they were a bit away. The tents were erected a little bit away from the portaloos. A lot of tissues, a lot of litter left. Again, I know it's an issue with camping and overnight camping. It's something that we have discussed it before, but it's really, I think it's something that we need to tackle. All that area that is privately owned, it's commonage, but it is privately owned. And I know that there are signs going up fairly soon as well, just to tell people, there were signs and they're being replaced to tell people to stay off that area. So I suppose it's a combination of raising awareness and enforcement and education as well. So I suppose it'd be no harm for all of us to keep an eye on it, and I think for the local authority to keep an eye on it as well. And if a survey be carried out at some stage, that at least in another few years we can see what kind of damage has been done or what kind of deterioration or erosion has taken place. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. So item number, oh yeah, Councillor Gilroy.
Yeah, look, this is very important. I know there's no houses or schools or anything like that under threat, but Lonely Planet have described this as one of the top 10 beaches in Ireland. The way it's going at the moment, if we have 20 years, and like Councillor Casserly and Mr. Kilfeather, I've been walking this beach and playing in it and swimming and everything else all my life. It isn't going to be there for the next generation. And if that's washed away, if it continues to deteriorate, and I do accept that you have to have a starting point for a survey, but there are historical photographs and stuff like that needs to be looked at. If the sand dunes and that, then there will be houses, and I would think of the likes of even Councillor Casserly's mother, who lives on the next shore. If that beach is washed away, the beach then moves in along that, and I have property myself there which I would be concerned about, and there's a lot of other houses there that would be in danger. The entire beach area, the area of the dunes from the car park over as far as Connollys Island, which is privately owned, that was, to my knowledge, part of the commonage, which had 10 owners, 2 of which shares belonged to Sligo County Council. But I see that the Land Development Agency have issued a map. It was sent to me. I honestly don't know who sent it to me. It was probably someone here in the council. The Land Development Agency have issued a map, and it actually shows that the car park area and the dunes over as far as Connollys Island are owned by the council. Now, I accept there's a shareholding in it, but I don't know if that's right or wrong. But if it is in our ownership and it's a special area conservation, I think we can't just say we're not allowing anyone to do anything, and it's an SAC, but it's we have a duty of care to it as an SAC, and we must bring in the National Parks and Wildlife and make them stand up to their part of it as well. But it is a threat, and I think even a start-off survey could make an estimation as to what has been damaged from historical maps, from the mid-90s, from the aerial photographs that are on the GeoHive service and things like that. There are a lot of terms of reference that they can use to maybe assess, and I know they can't do it accurately, but they can assess that there's an estimate of the damage that has been done, and I think that would be vital. And there are fires being lit in the dunes, in the marne grass. It's someday one of them is going to take off, and it's going to do huge damage. And with respect to the forests that were burnt in South Sligo and things like that, when you're on the edge of the ocean, if the grass is burnt away, there is nothing left to hold the sand, and it'll just blow away. It won't survive. So I think it's vital that we accept that we have a responsibility, whatever way we have to go about finding funds, but it has to be done. But we need to do the enforcement, and the fires, to me, is the number one that has to be stamped out completely. And I'll pull my hand up and admit that as a teenager, I cooked sausages on a fire in the middle of that late at night, and but different times, and we have to accept that can't continue. That was 40 years ago, so it was a different time. We have to live up to the responsibilities of today. It wasn't an SAC at that time.
Thanks, Councillor. Item number 8, if Councillor Fox arrives, we can take his motions towards the end of the meeting. Item number 9, it's my own motion, seconded by Councillor Gilroy. This is a local road in Arnisbrack, just beside Kilross. So can we have a report first? Thanks, Emer.
Coherlock, the road in question, it's a private road, and as such the responsibility for maintenance lies with the landowners who use the road to access their land holdings. The LIS scheme is utilised to improve the road surface on private lands and potentially could be considered in this instance.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Director for her reply. I think this is very frustrating for residents who live along these Class 2 or Class 3 roads that are private for 200 or 250 metres. They've paid a few thousand in services charge, they've paid their property tax, and they feel that they shouldn't have to apply for an LIS or be it a CIS scheme. I think it's very disappointing, the level of funding that's coming into the county and every other county across the country for Class 2 and 3 roads. It's something that I think we all have to do better and lobby for. There isn't enough money coming down for them. We all know there's a huge waiting list, and there's a huge list of roads currently on a list for LIS. So the money isn't covering, I'm not sure what percentage of the list this year. I think when you say to someone that's after getting planning permission for a house, they're paying whatever their fee is in their services charge based on the square area of the property. I think it's very disappointing that the department can't, I suppose, come up with something a little bit better for people who pay their taxes all their lives, build their property, and yet have to pay or contribute to resurfacing a road. There's landowners use this road, there's the property. The particular gentleman living in this house has an illness. It's an illness that's going to get worse. And who's responsible if an ambulance or a fire brigade can't get up this particular road? This is an issue that's coming up. I think every member has raised an issues with these private roads for the few hundred metres there. And I suppose it's very difficult for the owners of these properties to accept that they have to apply for these schemes. And just is there a formal process for taking in charge of a road like an estate? Is there a formal process in place?
It's not something that we have progressed. I expect legislatively wise, it potentially is similar to the estates, but I don't know. I stand corrected on that. But I think it's not something we progress because of the large kilometres of public road we have, and to the challenge we have to keep the public roads maintained in itself is very challenging. So to add additional roads would just make it very difficult. So maybe Mr. Crafether would like to come in.
I suppose the comparison is taking in charge roads in a housing estate. We only take them in charge when they're at a standard that would allow us to take them over, that we're effectively insured to take them over. The issue here is the road is probably not of a satisfactory standard. We can't take that over and add it to an existing list. We'll have 30 roads in the following week looking to be taken over if that was the criteria applied. We have to have a cut-off line somewhere, and the reality is we're only been asked to take it in charge because it's not of a reasonable standard anyway, So this is the dilemma, and you're right, Cathaoirleach. The funding for the LIS is, while it's very welcome, it's only a fraction of the demand is out there because of the fact there's been a lack of investment in our class 2 and class 3 roads. The demand is out there for the scheme, and we certainly could take any amount of funding we got for LIS roads, and that would certainly address the problem for a number of years in terms of those roads. But that's as far as we can go. But we certainly couldn't consider a policy of taking private roads in charge. It'd only add to the problems we have already.
Yeah.
Cathaoirleach? There was I pretty much kind of guessed what the response would be, and I do understand it, but there is a proposal to come before the SPC2. It was brought up by Councillor Clark at the last meeting, and I think Councillor Jerry Lunny was planning to bring it in and previously in SPC2, that some sort of a procedure would be brought in, even if it was a small number or under very specific standards, but it probably has some way to go and maybe a bit of negotiation back and forward, that really if a scheme could be started, even if it was going to take 30 years to get it finished, that if a couple of roads could be brought in some way, but maybe the ultimatum has to be gone to them. They have to get the LIS done first and bring it right up to standard before it can be taken in charge. But that maybe we need to sit down, the elected members and the executive, to try and thrash that out. And I think SPC2 is the place. You and I and Councillor Healy are all on that SPC, so we can push that. Thank you.
Councillor Healy.
Yeah, it's an ongoing issue in every area. Every house is affected by it. As it says, when people pay their stamp duty and they pay their development fees, they expect the road outside their house would be brought up to a certain standard. This area that Councillor Walsh is talking about, it's in an area where there is no footpaths, there is no lights, there's nothing like that. As you said yourself, CEO, that a lot of people are taking on to these schemes because there's nothing else out there for them. Because if they don't take up this scheme, they've nothing. And the problem here is as well that if 5 of us are living on the road and only 3 of us have the money to afford it, the other 2 are, we're dividing communities here by doing this as well. So I think what we should do is, and Chair, you're a member of this sitting government, is that we should be writing to the Minister, and we should be asking the Minister that he makes funding available for areas like this, where they can apply for funding to bring it up to their area up to a certain state, separate from any of the schemes that are in already, that there's a special funding there that they can apply for that will bring the roads up to a certain state, so the council could take them over. And that would be taken into account, as you said yourself, the property tax, the tax that they pay on their cars, and also the input that they put into moving into areas, like the development fees, that all that will be taken into account. And that people don't have to pay it 3 times for one service here. where they don't pay the property tax, because I still don't know what our property tax for, because just when we're hearing now it's for roads and we're hearing it's for lighting. I don't think that's what Phil Hogan brought it in for. So I mean, people are paying for that, and you've increased it here in Sligo, but people aren't seeing this level of service that they're entitled to. So this is an ongoing issue, and it's going to keep going on. It's going to go on in Ballygawley, the village that you live in yourself and I come from myself, where we have half the town lit up and the other half not. There's lack of lighting. Yet there was development started in that area. Where's all the money? How is there wasn't ring fence for them areas? So there's a big question here to be asked today: is where does people's money go to? When we pay our road tax didn't go into our roads. That went into Irish Water. So I mean, we can twiddle about here any way we want, but that's the reality of it. So I think what we need to be doing, if we are serious, and there's no point in putting in motions here if we don't come up with solutions to the problem. I think now that from this committee here, that we would put a motion forward from the municipal meeting at the next meeting in relation to coming up with a scheme that we will write to the minister that would help these people, help them sort out this issue and put it back with the government. The people that are paying the property tax, the people that are paying the road tax, and the people that are paying their development fees. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. So we can, I suppose, if we can draft a letter maybe to the department and the minister in relation to the funding for LIS Class 2 and Class 3 roads, and in relation to a scheme for private roads, or some sort of a new scheme.
Suppose before we send that new scheme off, that we talk to the roads department and try and come up with a way of exactly what way we want to be advising on how we go about this, because at the end of the day, if we do get funding and the roads are taken over, it'll come back into the cover of the local authorities. So we want to make sure we have a right, because if we set up this template and we do it right, it's not just this county that'll able to use it. It'll be able to be passed around across the rest of the country, because Sligo's not on its own. This is happening in every town and village around the country.
Yeah, no, we know that. I've raised the Class 2 and Class 3 roads umpteen times in the last two years. And just to finish on the motion, I suppose the people, particularly in the rural areas, feel, I suppose, let down in terms of funding for the roads. Where we see huge amount of funding going into national roads across Sligo at the minute, into our larger towns. We're not seeing it in our rural villages or outside of rural villages. So there is a bit of a, I suppose, displacement between urban versus rural in terms of funding and allocation of funding.
So I just spoke to Emer there, and we can put that on the agenda of SBC2, and that would be the place to have the conversation you're talking about, Thomas, with the engineers, and just see if we can find a solution, because it is recurrent for all of us. So it would be that's the place to start it from, I think, because it affects the other two areas too, and maybe lesser the one in the town.
Yeah, that's fine. Item number 11, I'll second that. Councillor Healy.
Yeah. Have you got a report?
Coherlock, an application was made under the Rural Regional Development Fund for public enhancement works in Collooney in 2020, which would have incorporated key elements of the proposed one-way system. But unfortunately, the application for funding was not successful on that occasion. As resources allow, however, Sligo County Council will reassess the application and include for consideration in the third call for Category 2 Rural Regional Development Fund applications, which is now open.
First of all, I want to thank you for your report, and I'd like to also thank the council for, it has been an ongoing issue over a long number of years, since 2009 when I first talked to the local engineers regarding a one-way system for Collooney. I've met with the businesses in Collooney. We held a meeting regarding the one-way system and they're all on board, but you have to have your own public consultation. I appreciate that. As I says, Collooney is a satellite village. There's over 2,000 residents now living in Collooney, and with us being so close to Sligo, it's an added attraction for businesses and everything else. Collooney has grown through the years, but what we want to see is our main street also, which means that we address the traffic management plan. And also we've a proposal there for a car park in the village, where somebody has given a ground, and as I says, that has been, I spoke to the outgoing, John O'Flaherty at the time, and I spoke to the local engineers on it as well. Just in relation, I did ask at the last meeting as well that the development fees for the Collooney and surrounding areas, that there be ring fence for the main street in Collooney as well in relation to this, whatever funding we can come up with. So I suppose the most important thing is that that we apply again under that scheme, and hopefully we'll be lucky the next time. And as I says, the community is there willing to work with you. We're in the process of setting up a business group in Collooney as well. With COVID, it has set that back. So it's important that we have the feedback of the community, the feedback of the business and that. But I want to thank the council for listening to us and also working on it. And we appreciate any help and support you can give us. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add to that, as the seconder, I had 2 motions down also in the last 2 years in relation to this. And there seems to be very little progress. I suppose that's people's feeling. There are some mixed views on whether there should be parking on one side or not, and so it would be important that the public consultation could take place maybe after COVID or as we move forward, so that we become a little bit more shovel ready. I think the RDF fund is an excellent fund. There's a lot of funding available through the RRDF now, so I think an application for a system in Collooney, a redesign, would be very, very welcome. And I would ask that the public consultation period be open as maybe, if possible this year, if not early next year, to progress it. It's an issue that keeps coming up. We've buses and lorries coming through the main street. They cannot get through. Some days, cars have to reverse, they're hitting mirrors, etc., etc. So I think everyone knows the situation in Collooney. There isn't any vacant unit in terms of commercial premises now available in Collooney. I have 3 people rang me in the last 2 months looking for premises in Collooney for 3 different businesses, and there's nothing available. So the infrastructure doesn't meet the population, and it doesn't meet the level of business and enterprise and commercial activity that's taking place in the town. So I think it's something, I would agree with Councillor Healy, it's something that we should progress from a local authority point of view as soon as possible. Collooney and Ballysadare are both satellite towns in the Ireland 2040 plan, and identified for growth of up to 40% by 2030. So we need to have the infrastructure that meets the potential growth level in both towns. Councillor Gilroy.
Again, just thanks for the report, and yes, it would be nice to see it advanced. I suppose the RRDF, I'd like to see it stretching a little bit further out into the rural areas. The last call, though, welcome. It was very close to the edges of the urban area, let's say. So I'd prefer to see it stretching out to places like Collooney and other villages. So I'd welcome that.
Just like to note as well the works that Sligo County Council has taken out in Collooney over the years. The Barrack Road, that was a major concern to the people. They did great work there, putting in new footpaths and a safe crossing as well. And as well as that, up at the school where we had a problem there with a turntable, low cost accident scheme came in there and put a turntable in there. And they have done great work. As I says, the main street is just one of the main problems. And as I says, the community, and there is an area there where we can look for a car park, and that will address all issues with parking in the village as well. So as I says, we have behind the scenes, the community have been working. What we need now is for yourselves to work with us, and the sooner we get this person put in place to carry out the consultation and a consultant put in place, the quicker we can work with them as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Item number 12, Councillor Healy.
I second that.
Second.
Councillor Fox is back now, so if he wants to go back to his motion, number 8.
Yeah, so we can go back to number 8 and go back then to number 10. Item number 8, Councillor Fox.
Apologies to leave the meeting. Just in relation to the Hamnish Cemetery, I've been down there with various members of the community, and have been approached by various members of the community in relation to the flooding issue at the Hamnish graveyard. And there was a motion tabled here back in January 2020, and there was a report to be provided. Now, I didn't get a copy of the report, but the issue still has not been dealt with, and there is a flooding issue there, and people are very concerned about visiting the graves of their loved ones, and rightly so. The flooding needs to be addressed urgently with the flash flooding we're having in recent times as well. It's just very concerning for the community. Also, in relation to the possibility of extending the graveyard, is there any possibility of a report in relation to that? Okay, thanks.
Go here, look. In relation to the drainage, the provision of a drainage system would involve going through third-party lands. Initial contact was made with the landowner and discussions are ongoing in relation to this. Just to note that any proposed drainage would require quite a bit of funding, but we are certainly talking to the landowner in relation to this.
Thank you for the report. Item number 10, Councillor Fox. I'll second that. I have a part, my motion is actually, I have a part of the bin piece and the anti-dumping, but Councillor Fox, if you want to start on your one.
Yeah, just in relation to the provision of seating and benches and solar compacting bins at Mullaghmore Head, Streeter Beach and Lissadell and Ross's Point, is there funding available for the provision of these facilities? I know that there's a new type of compressing bins available, and I was wondering if the funding would be available to provide those at these locations. These are there as the economy opens from COVID-19. I think we're going to have a lot more people socializing outside, and people are going to be using outdoor facilities rather than in indoors. So, it'll be great if we could have these facilities provided at these areas. Thank you.
Sorry, is there two reports in relation to mine and Councillor Fox? Are they separated or? Oh, okay. So if we let the director come in with the report.
In relation to motion number 10, I suppose just before I maybe read out this motion, the response, that we are looking generally across the county, and I suppose in this, I know we're looking at North Sligo here, we are looking at identifying suitable areas, that we can make improvements, but I guess not all areas are suitable for improvements, and there isn't an infinite amount of funding, so we're trying to prioritise where best to use the potential funding that we get, just as a general comment. So Sligo County Council have identified suitable locations for additional seating and benches at Ross's Point, and are progressing the purchase and placement of same in the coming weeks. We haven't identified locations at Mullaghmore Head, Streeda or Lissadell, but we are looking at Mullaghmore Village to determine if there are any suitable locations for additional seating. We will be installing additional bins in the vicinity of the beach car park at Ross's Point over the next few weeks. And as there are no bins presently at Mullaghmore Head or Streeda or Lissadell, there are no plans to install any new bins at these locations. And I guess it's down to, you put a bin in situ, and it does attract dumping. There's no question about that in some locations. So we need to be mindful of balancing the provision of bins with trying to keep the area clean as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cannon, for the report. And just to, is the council aware of the compacting bins that reduce litter collections by up to 90%? Are you familiar with those bins that can be provided in rural areas?
Yeah, we are familiar with them. We are familiar with them, and we have actually secured funding for one set of the compacting bins. They cost in the region of up to approximately 5,000 per bin, and when we're looking at general waste and recycling and compostable, it's almost 15,000 per set of bins. So we're looking at other avenues of funding to get more, but we have secured funding for one, and we're just looking at a potential location for that at the moment.
Yeah, just look at back on the 5th of May, Minister Ryan announced 5 million for additional funding for litter prevention and cleaning equipment, and I just thought I'd bring that to the attention of the council. Thanks.
Yeah, we're aware of that fund, and we're just waiting for further information from the department in relation to what exactly we can apply for, but we fully intend to apply for the maximum of whatever is available there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, how much funding can we get, or do we know?
It was a general announcement of a nationwide fund, but we haven't got specifics as to what exactly we can apply for and how much per local authority. So that's en route to us. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to take my motion because it's coming in on the back of that in relation to the fund and just on the anti-dumping initiative. My understanding is that the department are seeking a mapping of the bin infrastructure in every local authority area. That's my understanding, according to, I think that was included in the press release that came out with that 5 million funding as part of the COVID fund. Obviously, as we return to a level of normality and an outdoor summer, there'd be greater focus on outdoor dining and socialising, and it's important, I suppose, as a local authority that we would prepare for this. Do we have a mapping infrastructure of the bins, public bins across the county? My understanding is that that's what the department are going to be looking for, and I also understand that going forward that all materials in terms of litter pickers, bins, dog litter bags, gloves, etc., are going to be centralised in terms of procurement this year from the department. I think there's extra funding being made available also as part of the anti-dumping initiative this year, and it'll be centrally procured. So I'm not sure, has there been any memo circulated from the department yet on that?
No, not on the centralised procurement. No.
No. I suppose just, and I was contacted actually last week in relation to no bin at Mullaghmore. There was someone, I think the gentleman in question was from Bundoran and he was walking a dog. And I suppose, it led to him carrying around a dog fouling bag with him for his walk. And I suppose when we have hundreds of people, which I suppose are expected, particularly this season, into places like Mullaghmore, and I take the point that it'll lead to increase in litter, but particularly in our public amenity areas and recreational areas, we have to have some sort of bin infrastructure, albeit limited. But I think the solar system, which a lot of them are being rolled out in Dublin. I've seen a number of local authorities across Dublin have the solar power bins, which have an alert kind of system in how full they become and how full they are. There is obviously huge problems with the bins in Russell's Point currently, and I know in Collooney the bins were taken out of the main street on the request of Tidy Towns. I understand the 2 bins were removed because they were overflowed for the past 2 or 3 months. I think there's an onus on the businesses, particularly takeaways. They should have some sort of a levy or some sort of financial output from them towards bins outside their premises, particularly in urban centres and towns where we had bins and the local authority or community groups were expected to empty them. I think if in the main, where they're beside a takeaway, they're being filled with takeaway rubbish, and there should be some sort of an onus on the particular business, if it's a takeaway, to empty them and not have someone from the community doing it on a daily basis. There's a lot to be done, and community groups are under enough pressure at the moment, I would feel, in terms of verges and in terms of hedges and in terms of trimming and regular litter picking. Maybe that's something that could be explored. So we'll wait further information in relation to the mapping of the bin infrastructure in the county. My understanding is that every local authority will be expected to map their public bins. And just one final point, I suppose it's important that we have when we're make an application for this scheme, that we have a fairness between rural and urban. I'm coming back to the point of view that many rural villages and rural recreational areas don't feel a benefit of the national funding, national exchequer funding coming from government that we're seeing going into our urban areas. And I think we need to look at that. So it's important that we have a geographical spread in terms of this grant, like Town and Village Renewal, like Clonlore, going forward. Thank you. Councillor Healy?
Yeah, just in relation to that motion, I suppose this is for the CEO more than anything else. It's like, we all know the need for bins and the need for all this, but I mean, at the end of the day, who is going to pick up the rubbish? As you say to yourself there, in Collooney, we had one man go around emptying bins. It's not always the chippers stuff that goes into the bins either. It's commercial people coming in throwing black bags into bins. So first thing we need to get right is the size of the bin that we use in areas. That you only can put in your hand into it and not allocated for big bags. Any of the bins was in Collooney or in Ballystair down through the years. And back in 2009, there was a survey carried out on the number of bins in the Ballymote area at the time. And after the survey was carried out, the council came and lifted the bins instead of working with the people that did the opposite. So we have the problem in Ballystair where the bins have to be emptied. So one time in Ballystair and Collooney, the council had a man employed. His job was cleaning the streets, emptying the bins and everything like that. We're having that now. So it's all right putting in extra bins, but will we have the manpower to empty them? Or is this mapping that you're on about, will the mapping provide that if there's bins in Collooney, Ballystair, Ballygawley, that there's somebody going to go around and pick up all these bins? Or will it be thrown back again to the local community to pick up the tidy up after all this?
Okay, here, look, first of all, it's not a question of putting more bins in. That's, I've sat in this chamber and heard councillors thank us for taking the bins out of Ballymote. They said it was the right thing to do. So then we're told that there's not enough bins. Then we're told that the bins aren't big enough. The reality is, bins is only one part of it. Who disposes of it? Who pays for it? We have very limited budgets in terms of what we can do. In terms of staffing, I'm not going back on a debate that where we were down 42% of staff. We just lost staff. We have to prioritise in our services. This is going to be an exceptionally difficult year in a whole load of areas, but particularly in relation to how we present our resorts and the town and the village. And we want to do that as best we can. And one of the proposals that we're trying to put in place is we're putting amenity wardens in place. And that's a wide description. But the intention of myself and Ms. Concan and the team is that a big part of their remit will be keeping the place clean. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. It is going to be a challenge because we do have challenges every summer. We have them in Ross's Point. We have them in Strandhill. Councillor O'Grady mentioned this morning about, Friday evening the bins were very full in Strandhill. That's probably something we should have been maybe watching ourselves. But what we're trying to do for the summer is to keep the place clean. And the solution isn't always more bins, bigger bins. It's more complex than that. But for this summer, our intention is to use additional staff to try and keep the place clean.
Councillor Gilroy?
Yes, fully accept what you're saying, Thomas. It's you want the wisdom of Solomon to solve this one because it's just crazy. There was a bin put in for dog bags in Municipal a few years ago, and I was talking to the environment section, and Pete came back to me, and he said there was a bin put in for dog poo, and it was piled up with about 30 bags of domestic refuse round it, and it had to be taken out after a short, I think it was only weeks that it actually stayed for. It had to be removed. And how we get over this, really, and we had Councillor Gibbons on earlier about the CCTV and GDPR and all that. It's nearly at a stage where you can't put in a bin unless you have it covered by CCTV. Same as the bottle bank, same as all these things. I'm not going to say I have an answer to it. I don't think anyone has an answer to it. It seems to be just multiplying. If they don't do it there, they put it into their car and they drive up to the first hideaway scenic spot with a bit of forest or something and fling it out the window. There's just monumental stuff going on with rubbish and dumping, and I'd love to say extra bins would do it, but it's not. But we you know, and even these composter bins, 15,000. I think if you stick something on the footpath anywhere in County Sligo, Leitrim, Donegal, any other county, and you don't have it for worth 15 grand, and it doesn't have a CCTV on it, I'd be afraid what would be done to it. You know, it'll be set on fire. I've seen the compactor bins in private locations. Anytime recently, if you're going to Galway, there's probably very little places to stop for a bit of food, and Supermax and Ballantine, and there's a compactor bin there, and it's permanently overflowing, and it's on private property. It's themselves put it in, and it seems to be permanently wedged to full. And I'd love to see them working, but I just wish you luck with it. That's all I can say. Thank you.
We'll leave that in your capable hands, Director. Item number.
It's important that we hear from the CEO that, I mean, we haven't got the manpower to do all this. We might have to go back to the general public out there to help us. And it's important that we get the message out on what's happening, what can be done and what can't be done.
Yeah, you know, we take the point that the community groups are suffering in terms of manpower at the moment everywhere. Director?
I suppose maybe just on that as well. I mean, we're obviously going to do our utmost this summer, and I think Connollys mentioned there was, you know, the responsibility of businesses as well, and maybe bringing them in. And I think that's certainly an avenue that we should go down. I mean, businesses are responsible under the Litter Pollution Act for the area in front of their own premises, and you know that I think maybe we could do some work on that over the next in the short term. You know, and work in partnership, obviously, you know, it's just another avenue that we can use.
Yeah, no, thanks, Director. I think there was a study published last week by Antashka as part of this announcement of the 5 million fund, and I think cigarette butts, coffee cups, and takeaway packaging were the three main things being disposed of across the country at great amounts. So, item number 12, Councillor Healy.
I'd second to that.
Seconded by Councillor Gilroy.
Cathaoirleach, as previously stated at this meeting, Sligo County Council has engaged with the respective landowner to discuss access arrangements. It will more than likely be Q3, Q4 of this year before it can be dealt with, as the roads staff will be very busy over the coming months completing the roads programme. But when the roads programme is complete in the autumn time, we will have an opportunity to deal with this.
Well, thanks for your report. And as I says, it's very important. I says after we're getting a lot of work done behind the scenes by myself and Councillor Gilroy in relation to talking to the farmer and getting things in place. We don't want this to lapse. We want to make sure that this happens. It's important for all the farmers that's up there, what we're proposing to put in. It'll be a benefit to everyone. And as I says, when we get the help of local farmers coming on board with us, it's important that we use it. And time is of the essence. So I'd appreciate, as I said in your thing there about work and everything else, but that we make contact with the farmer and say, look, that we haven't forgot about you, that we are in the process of doing it, and keep that line of communication that I've opened for you, keep it there and make sure that it's being used, just to keep them filled in on what's happening. Thank you.
Councillor Casserly.
Yes, I actually had this motion. It was said the same at the last meeting that it was just 2 councillors, and it's on the record, and I have it down as motions, and there's been communication, and I've spoken to the landowners as well. I think it's very unfair to mention just 2 councillors that have been involved, particularly when this was brought up over the years. So I'd like to welcome the report as well. I do understand that it takes manpower and it takes money as well, but even about a week and a half ago, I got a call from somebody questioning why there was a fence over a public road again, and it's dangerous. People who are travelling there who don't know the area, they're not sure what they should do. Do they, you know, it's a public road. Do they turn around? Do they take down the fence? Do they take it down and drive through and put it back up again? So it's something that really does need to be resolved. And I know that Councillor Clark had a similar motion in with myself a couple of years ago on this. So it is ongoing. It's not just something that has come up in the last 6 or 12 months. So I think that it's important that it's acknowledged that, you know, there has been consultation and it has been down as a motion, and landowners have been communicated with, and it's something that hasn't been dealt with properly, and hopefully now that it will be dealt with finally. Thank you.
Councillor Gilroy.
Delighted to second the motion. Delighted to hear it's going to happen this year. There have been funds from councillors' proposals put towards it. There's also, there was one stumbling block, and I think what Councillor Healy was referring to there was that myself and himself met with the acting chief executive, and I think we removed that stumbling block. So I think that was what he was referring to in particular, that may have just been the thing that got it over the line. So it's good. Nobody's saying everybody isn't fighting for it. Everyone it wants these things to be done right. And in fact, I know that the first motion I had in about it was to the full council, and Councillor Clark had one similar for his area. We had discussed it in advance. So these things are going on all over the place, and a solution was found, and the deal has been done, as they say, and it just has to be got across the line now and finished out in a timely manner. Thank you.
I just, as Councillor Gilroy says, that's exactly how it happened. And as it says, we're dealing with one farmer that has the parcel of ground. And as it says, I want to make sure that we get it over the line and get it done and dusted. It's something that's been going on down that area for a long number of years. And as it says, we have an opportunity now to address it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Item number 13, I'll second that. Councillor Healy.
Yeah, as it says, I've stated here that I'm looking for this, the long stretch to be put on a 3-year, we're into the three-year road programme, and I'm looking for this road to be done. It's an ongoing issue. It's been happening over the last 30 years. And in fairness to the people that live out in that area, they're not going to go away, and neither is the road going away. So we have to come up with a solution, and we have to come up with it soon. As it says, down through the years, we've done different works there on it. We put down road levelers on it to see exactly how high the water is rising. We've asked for work to be done underneath the bridge, where one of the eyes is too high to get that drop down. I think at the time they were working with the fisheries, there was an extra pipe put in. Unfortunately, when they put in the pipe, the water was at its highest. So when the flood comes, the water has to rise up too high to get into the pipe, and the water is not going through it. I took a video and sent pictures here of it the time the road was flooded. So now what I'm asking is, for once and for all, we're in a 3-year programme. I'm asking the councillors from this municipal area to make sure that this put on the agenda, because this needs to be addressed. It's not going to go away. It's an ongoing issue. I have people ringing me on any day of a heavy shower saying, I wonder is a long stretch blocked or what. So I mean, there's a lot of people uses this road, and it's also goes into Leitrim, into Drumcliffe and that. So as it says, it's on the agenda. The road programme is in, so I think now we have an opportunity to address it. Thank you.
Yeah, Director.
Cahirlock, the raising of the road level in this area would be significant to bring the level of the road above the floodplain. However, it would initially have to be demonstrated that these works would also not have an adverse impact on the local environment. The raising of the road in this area would cost a significant 6-figure sum, and it is possible that any raised road would sink further due to the increased weight of the road and poor ground conditions. The inclusion of this road in the Restoration Improvement Programme is deemed inappropriate due to the significant work and costs involved. Just to note that there are no houses or occupied properties affected by the flooding. When flooding occurs, a short road diversion is put in place.
If I can come in before you, or do you want to come in first?
I'm disappointed with that response. So we'll get it over and done with here now. So the Sligo County Council is stating that they're not going to invest in this road. I know there's no houses in, and there is houses in the area, and them houses there's 3 houses in the area of where on the long stretch. There is farms in the area. No farmer has any concern about the land. They're willing to work with us. But you're saying that we're putting diversions. So that's going to happen. That's what's happening over the last 30 years. So we're just going to forget about the problem and ignore it. People have been stuck in it. Cars have been damaged in it down through the years. Even local, employees from Sligo County Council that came in lost their cars in it. So, I mean, this thing about saying that we're not going to invest in it and we're not going to do it, why aren't we going to invest in it? So, I mean, if we're not going to invest in it, either close the road and upgrade one of the other roads, and that might be the handiest way out of it. But to say that we're going to leave it the way it is unacceptable to me, and it's unacceptable to the people of Ballantor that, like as we're going back again, paid their road tax, paid their property tax, pay every other sort of tax, and that here we are, that we're not going to solve one problem, because it floods now 4 or 5 times a year. And as we know, with climate change, we're going to get more rain. So, I mean, we need to address this. And I'm not going to accept that response. And I'm asking other councillors now to support this motion that I put forward, that we do go ahead and we do look to get this road done once and for all. Because we have the manpower and we have the capabilities here in Sligo County Council to address this road and bring it up to a standard that we know will be safe. They have different material out there now that they hadn't got years ago in relation to to grounds caving away from them and that, and they have used them up mountains and everything else, and I'm sure they can use them on this road.
Thanks. See,
It's a matter for the councillors. It's a roadworks programme. It's your roadworks programme, and you decide what you want to prioritise in it. The director has indicated you're talking about a 6-figure sum. So if this road is to be prioritised, have regard to the fact that the implications of that for the rest of your roadworks programme. So it's not a question of, you haven't to accept that. You can make it a priority. What we will do is, in advance of the budget process and the roadworks programme, we get a rough costing done on what it actually would cost for the job, and that might help inform the councillors. Because in fairness, the road does flood. There's diversions in place. We indicate that it's going to cost a 6-figure sum. So I suppose those are the two dilemmas we have, and maybe to inform the discussion and the decision making of the members for future roads programmes, we'll try and put a good costing on it, a rough costing on it, and that might be helpful.
thanks. See, I just want to make 2 or 3 quick points. I met with residents down here last Thursday evening, and I suppose I think there's 6 properties affected, and while it's not affecting properties directly, it's affecting their lives. There is one particular house that has to go back towards Carrow Row to get back to Ballantor National School with children when this happens. So even if it's not affecting flooding of a house directly, it's affecting people's lives. The environment is mentioned a huge amount now across in reports coming back from the local authority and reports coming back from the department. We have people's lives and the safety issues for me are a lot more important than the habitat along this area. So something has to give here. We continuously, and this isn't a criticism of the director, it's a criticism, I suppose, of the regulations. We continuously use this environmental avenue of not doing the right thing, not doing the simple thing, answer or solution to the problem. And while the CE and both the director have mentioned about this 6-figure sum, there are local people there that, and Councillor Healy referred to this bridge. That issue with the bridge isn't sorted. It is only a small part of that work has taken place because it stopped halfway through it. It was stopped. So there's local knowledge there that if we can maybe even meet with the residents, without even going into the 6-figure sum, there is other minor works that can be, if we can get permission of 1 or 2 people, that can be done, which will help alleviate the problem with the road. And there is a problem with the far side of the bridge. There was a new pipe put in, but there's a problem with the far side of it. So, there's no point building up a road if we haven't the remedial work done, the mountainside, the rockwood and the slish slide off the road. which appears to be a bigger part of the problem at the minute. So I think maybe if as a result of today, if we can maybe have the senior engineer meet with one or two of the residents, there is local knowledge, they have their own thoughts on it, and it doesn't refer, they don't talk about raising the road height. There is a proposal that they have that it may help alleviate this problem. And I again come back to the point, and I'd finish on this, that it's people's lives and the safety of this particular road versus the habitat. So, you know, sometimes we just have to make these decisions. Councillor Gilroy.
And thank you, Cahir. And look, we all know the reality. The cake is so big, and there's a lot of people wanting a bite out of it. So it is going to be difficult to finance it. The point just made by the Cahir there, it repeats itself. It's the same issue that we talked about, Street earlier on, the environmental conditions, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And I'm sure it'll be the same answer I'll get from one about the disabled access later on. But really, people should come first. So that's something important. The second thing, and I brought it in as a question here before, and the response came from Irish Water, which I suppose wasn't where I was looking for it. It's about the sluice gates across the road here at the weir. And I know they have to be kept at a certain level to maintain the water level in the lake for the drinking water supply for the town, and that Irish Water have to control that. But I do think there's a possibility, and one of the businesses that's affected when the flooding heads out that direction is the Waterglades Garden Centre, and it was Mr. Healy out there that I don't think he's any relation to our councillor. He brought to my attention that it was him that suggested to me that if when there's extreme flooding, an adjustment could be made down here, the water would get away from the lake quicker, which would go on up the bonnet. Really, when the bonnet floods, that if these were lowered, the water level could still be made available for Irish Water. I think it's something worth investigating to see if there's anything that can be done. If it took 2 of the 5 floodings a year out of it by just reducing it and made the other 3 slightly less of an impact on the people that it affects, it might just relieve the problem. We're a coastal county. When the tide goes out, the water goes with it. But we have to let the water get to the tidal areas. So the entire lake and all of that land out there floods because the lake rises. And what we have to do is try and let the water away from the lake. The Garavogue is one of the shortest rivers in the country, and it could take more without doing any damage to either environmental or to the water supply, I believe. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but that's my belief on it. So I think it might be worth investigating or trying, or maybe putting something in place that the next time that a flood warning comes, that somebody says, let's have a go at it and see, does this work, without doing any harm, because you can always reverse it. It only takes a few minutes to reverse it and put the sluice gates back up. So look, we're looking for solutions, and if we can do it, and I do appreciate, I'd love to see the job done, but if we end up with no money to do anything else for 2 years anywhere in the county, we'll all be screaming and shouting, and we'll have plenty of people screaming and shouting at us. But a solution is what we need to find and all work together.
Through the chair. First of all, thanks very much, and I appreciate what the CEO said as well. As I says, I did say the programme was over 3 years, so I'm not expecting all the money to be paid out in 1 year. In fairness to the local engineer has met with farmers out there in the region in relation to put in the time we put in the post for the levelling of the water. He did give a commitment that he would meet with the rest of the committee, and I know the committee, councillor, or the families that Councillor Walsh is talking about. So what I will do is I will look for a meeting with the local engineer to talk to the rest of them in relation to a number of the issue. But one of the issues is the eye of the bridge was never dropped down to the right height. When the work was done, it was the fisheries that put it in place, asked that the pipe be kept up a certain distance from the bridge itself. Unfortunately, when the pipe was put in, the water was at its highest level. So all I wanted was a foot off the water, off the water bed or the beda. So I mean, there is an opportunity here to drop that pipe down a good considerable distance. So as it says, if we can get a solution to the problem, very good. Just mean if we don't have to spend money, all the better. But I mean, at the same time, this is 30 years in the making. I mean, this local authority is around a lot longer than 30 years. This needs to be addressed once and for all. And as I says, maybe it's our municipal district that will step up to the mark and will solve it once and for all. And that's all the better. Then if we get it solved once, we won't have to go back to it again. That's the most important thing. So as it says, the most important thing is we're in here to serve the people. And by serving the people, this is one of the things we can be doing. So as it says, appreciate your correspondence. Thanks for what the CEO says. And as I says, when we get the costs and everything else, there's no problem. I will talk to the local engineer on what we can do, and hopefully we'll have that report back with yourself before the costs and everything else. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Item number 15, Councillor Gilroy. Seconded by Councillor Fox.
Can I get a report, please?
Cathaoirleach, our chair, Sligo County Council's Planning Enforcement Section commenced enforcement action against the original owners of this development when works on the completion of the permitted work ceased. Following this, the property changed hands. We have recently been contacted by agents working on behalf of the current owners who propose to complete works to the apartments in Block 1, that's over the supermarket, in the next 12 months. No indication, however, was given that any works are envisaged to take place to Block 2, which is the post office block, in the short term. And as the original planning permission has expired, any new works to Block 2 will require a new planning permission.
Thanks. Delighted to find that the first block is going to be completed, and that they're going to do that. That's long overdue, and delighted to hear it at this stage that it's coming. I suppose the €150,000 bond that the contractor paid at the time, and there was 143,000 in development charges. Could any of that money be used to try and get that? It's such an awful eyesore coming into the village. It's, you know, it's Ireland's Olympic village. We're going to have RTE down there, but it's all smiling out when we have our competitors. And this is what greets them coming into the village. And it is just horrible. There's another development planned right beside it, which will be coming into planning in the next few months, where an industry is planning to create 150, 180 jobs. And, you know, to have an eyesore like that in the middle of it, and it just has to be done. And it's not fair on the two businesses that are trading in Block 2, under where the apartments were going to the post office and the takeaway. And the other units, nobody's going to go into them because their roofs are not roofs, they're floors to the apartments that were to go overhead. And they're not waterproof. They're an absolute disaster, and it's a torture there. It's been used for, that location has been used for illegal dumping. I know fences and blockades and things like that have gone up to try and stop people going in the back dump and stuff. And I think we have to, Ms. Clark, with due respect, we have to use the heaviest hammer we can use to force them on this issue. And I accept that maybe if you're getting them to do half a loaf is better than no bread, and I welcome that part is going to be done. And there is a need for properties as well. And you know, I keep getting told if there's any single people and things like that in North Sligo looking for social housing, that there are nothing available. So the fact that there'll be apartments and things like that available might be an advantage to us. But the other has to be done, some sort of a solution. And even if it was to say, well, we need another 18 months afterwards to finish the other two, or to push them to get their planning application into you, that at least you could consider it and at least have that. We don't want them to say when they're finished the other, oh, now we'll start looking for planning and get back into the whole rigmarole again that, you know, can take 2 or 3 years to get through everything. I'd like to see them start on that, and if you can push them in any way on that, I would really, really appreciate it. So thanks very much for at least some good news. Thank you.
Councillor Casterly.
Thank you. I'll be brief as well. I'd just like to welcome the report and to echo what Councillor Gilroy says, particularly about, I suppose, first of all, the eyesore coming into the village. It has been mentioned before in Tidy Towns reports, and no matter what work is being done, and there's fantastic work being done in the village, particularly with Tidy Towns and with all the new developments that you just cannot make it look good. No amount of planting or trees or painting will improve the look of it. So any kind of an improvement is certainly welcome. The other issue, I suppose, is in relation to there are an awful lot of people looking for the development of community hubs and work hubs, and there's a great, I suppose, there's capacity there and the space there for the development of those community hubs. So I think that it really would finish off the village, because it's beautiful coming from the north side in. You still have your old village, and you know the style is still the same, and it's a traditional style. And then you have your modern part of the village heading south, and I think that, you know, that the community hubs and the improvement in housing, and that it's a very sought after area, the village as well. There is space there. So I think that it really would complete the village just to have that done. And it is an awful eyesore. And businesses have had to actually move out of there because of the condition of the premises, because of dampness and just the poor quality of finish. So it would certainly be very welcome to the entire area to have that improved, and I suppose sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Fox and Councillor Healy.
Yeah, just to support the motion, it's a shame to see these buildings lying idle. It's a sought after area. Grange is a sought after area. I work within the housing industry myself. And hopefully the new owners are fully aware of the upsurge in demand in the Grange area. It's, you know, it's a sought after area, and hopefully they're fully aware of that. In terms of what Councillor Cassidy just mentioned there about hubs, there's a great opportunity there to locate a hub there in that area. It's with the new primary care centre being built there now, you're going to have more and more people coming to and from the village, and it's a shame that we cannot have something done with it before the primary care centre is finalised. So hopefully they can be encouraged to move on with it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Healy.
Yeah, first of all, I want to welcome Councillor Gilroy for putting forward the motion. I had a motion earlier on myself about the mill falls in Ballystair. I'm sure Dorothy is well aware of them. Just in relation to this one, Dorothy, the new owners that's taken over, it's in two phases. Councillor Gilroy hit on that there's a development, or there's a bond on it of 150,000. Is that for the two estates? Is that for the two areas, Area 1 and Area 2, or is that just for Area 1?
Okay. Councillor, I'd have to go back and check that. I'm not really sure. I would imagine, though, that once we get phase 1 completed, that, you know, even before that, that we will be able to kind of highlight, I suppose, the importance of completing phase 2. At least that, but it will require a new planning application. I can the situation in relation to the bond. I'm just not sure whether it covers the two phases or the two blocks, but I can check that out for you.
Well, just want to raise with you, just want to note, if nothing else, if the bond only covers phase 1 and phase 1 project is finished, that means that developer will be entitled to his €150 or £150,000 back.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is we need to get a commitment off the owner. He says that he's going to do the first phase in first 12 months, that we get a commitment off him that would automatically fall into the second phase, and that there be some put into the planning or something in relation to the development fee. Is that development fee tied into phase 2? If it is, then when he applies for planning for it, how will that work out? It's just I mean,
yeah,
it's great.
Yeah.
It's great seeing these businesses and people coming in and taking them over. But I mean, we don't want to see it falling between two stools either, where we'd have one project finished, the other one not. The €150,000 drawn down, and us waiting then for it to go to plan and then left there for a number of years. So I think that one needs to be noted. Thank you.
Sorry, if I may just come in, because, and I'm not trying to jump the gun or anything, the planning application that the 150,000 and Dorothy can maybe just pinpoint if I'm right on this or not. The planning application at the time was for the supermarket, each of the small retail units and the apartments in both buildings, the one over the supermarket and the one over the others. So the 150 was a bond for the whole thing. So I really think until they finish the whole lot, they shouldn't be released from the bond. If it's still there, I don't know how secure we were on those when that time nobody ever saw what happened was going to happen. But if there was anything there, there's drainage issues. There's an underground car park that I've stood in myself, and it came in over the top of the wellies. You know, it needs to be finished. It's making it an eyesore, and in fact, our debate here last month or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about camping areas and things like that, one of the few areas that's in the current development plan that's zoned for tourism facilities is actually right adjacent to that supermarket car park, probably coming in off the other road of the County Proclish side. But like, you're not going to get anyone to invest in a tourism facility looking at an unfinished building. One thing is going to lead to another. So we welcome what's there, but please put the right foot to the metal and get it across the line to get the two. I plead with you to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair. Yeah, it's certainly to be kept under review, under regular review.
Thank you. Item number 16, Councillor Gilroy. Seconder, Councillor Fox.
And I'm sure the report probably hasn't changed from the ones your predecessor who has left the room gave me.
I'd say there's very little surprises here. Coherlock, as Streeda Beach is in a special area of conservation, any significant works would require planning permission and resources, and this would be the case for the provision of a disabled access. However, a meeting is to take place at Streeda Beach with the Water Safety Development Officer, the National Parks and Wildlife Services, Clean Coast Group and council members in the next few weeks to discuss issues and concerns at Streeda.
Thanks very much for that, and I welcome that we're to be involved in that. I'm certain Councillor Casserly knows of where I'm talking about, and I'm sure she's looked at it as well. We've all thought about how to solve this. There was, even though it was an SAC, there was a trench cut or a track cut through in order to get the lifeguards camp up to lifeguards hut up to where it sits. So there is a pathway through, and that would, in my opinion, probably be the easiest one. The little bit of damage that has been done has been done. Now, obviously, I know that the design has to take in ways that you can allow people with limited mobility to get in. It probably will be too difficult. Councillor Bree had a motion earlier about wheelchair access to beaches. I can see it being a struggle to get wheelchairs onto that beach, and I do appreciate that. But there are people who have had strokes, who have had things like that, people who are just getting a little bit older. And there was one man who came to me, and he has made a huge contribution to the local community, training underage football teams and things like that. But he's getting on. His wife died a number of years ago. They used to walk that beach every day. They were walking it before they were married, and they were married for 40 plus years. And now he finds that he's not able to walk the beach, and it's a tragedy. And we should be making these wonderful amenities we have available to everybody. So I thank you for organising that, and I'd appreciate hearing about it when it's happening.
Thank you. Item number 17, Councillor Gilroy. Seconder.
Yeah.
Councillor Healy.
Does any report on that?
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah. Chair, yes, Sligo County Council has not received any notification regarding the provision of any offshore wind farms off the Sligo coast. However, this does not curtail or restrict any company from publicly indicating their intention to examine the area off the Sligo coast as a possible location for the installation of a renewable energy project.
Thanks very much for the report. And I suppose, look, we know we have to have renewable energy, but it is, and we talked about the sensitivities of the area. Really, anything that's visible from the shore in that particular area I'm lucky enough to be able to see out to the sea myself, and other people here are in the same boat. And it is vital that if these things are to happen, I did notice that there was a LiDAR survey done, which was maybe taken account, and it seemed to go from Mulletmore Head to St. John's Point. That was carried out on a Sunday afternoon in February, and they went up and down and over and back in a grid formation. I have a photograph, a screenshot of the track that they took, and it's definitely something that that we have to watch out for. That if it is done, that it's done properly and sensitively to the scenic location that it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casserly.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I actually want to just speak very briefly on the previous motion, if it's not too late. I had my hand up, but
Perfect.
you didn't see it.
No,
Is
yeah,
that
I didn't
okay?
see it.
Yeah. Thank you. No, just in relation to the previous motion, it was actually, I had that motion in as well a few years ago on the access to Streeter Beach, and I had discussed it with the Director of Services at the time, and I have been asking, and I know it is a special area of conservation, but an awful lot of people are accessing it, and my own mother actually finds it very difficult to, and thank God she's still able to walk every day, but she finds it very difficult to access over the stones, and people with limited mobility are very nervous, and people do fall. They love going across there and they try and find the easiest way to access, but they're very nervous actually crossing the stones. And people have actually sent me different, photos of temporary structures that are in other locations around Ireland and in Europe as well, and further afield, that I'm sure they're expensive, but they seem to solve the problem of that access. And I know particularly with the availability of the beach wheelchairs, it's a fantastic initiative, and it's just such a pity that it can't be used at Streeter Beach, and that users have to go to other beaches to use that particular wheelchair. So I think I'm hoping that there has to be some sort of a solution that doesn't affect the SAC, or that doesn't disrupt the wildlife and the flora and fauna that's there. But I think, as Councillor Walsh had mentioned earlier, I think that disability access onto a beach, I think, should take precedent over, and I'm not dismissing SACs at all, but if you could have some sort of engineered access that would make it easier, even if it was for the summer months, because it does get rough there in the winter, and I can't see it actually, I couldn't see it last in the winter months anyway, but it's something that maybe you could put out for the summer season and take back in again. I know there are options out there, and I know it's it's an issue of cost as well, but I think that we should probably look at it a little bit more. Thank you, and thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to speak on that motion, item 17?
Yeah, we're just happy that nothing to the moment. We'd like to be kept informed if there is any contact. I think that would be important. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 18, correspondence, Neil. 19 AOB. Thank you, everybody.